I don't understand why it's become like a legitimate position to think that illegal immigration is a good thing.
Who is saying this? He's speaking to like 0.2% of the country, you know, and they're all undergrads.
I think that basically everything that he was saying is built off of emotion, implication, and insinuation.
They were kidnapping kids! That's why people are getting emotional.
Their viewpoints framed in a way that makes them look like villains. And at a certain point,
it is villainous to kidnap children. Yes, he has no idea what is going on in this hearing. He has no clue. Didn't he say that he was going to try to educate himself more? Pals, I think you're really going to enjoy this video. If you do, please hit the like and subscribe button and comment button. It really helps out. Asmongold had a few choice words to say about Trump's new Border Czar. Asmongold, as far as I'm aware, seems positively giddy with the second Trump presidency, rather.
I feel like a lot of people are like super positive about this guy because like as soon as those videos came out about him talking about like the deportations, everybody was supporting him. Not everybody.
Wait, what? Talk about a bubble. Jesus Christ.
It's not true. But like he got a lot of support on social media.
Are you planning on deporting American citizens?
No, exactly not. Look, the view, it's like
sorry, it's quiet.
Toys. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. President Trump has made it clear. We will prioritize public safety threats and national security threats.
I'll go back.
Are you planning on deporting American citizens?
No, exactly not. Look, the view, it's like island of misfit toys. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. President Trump has made it clear. We will prioritize public safety threats and national security threats first. And that's what the focus will be. And there's over 1.5 convicted criminal aliens in this country with final orders removal that we're going to be looking for. There's thousands of gang members, illegal alien gang members we're going to be looking for. Now, I'm going to say, if you're in the country illegally, you shouldn't feel comfortable. Absolutely not. I won't feel comfortable if I'm in the country illegally. If I'm in some other country illegally, I'm not going to be comfortable. You shouldn't be comfortable either, because when you enter this country illegally, you have committed a crime. You are a criminal, and you're not off the table.
Man.
I feel like he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, though. Like, what's the point of saying that we're gonna prioritize violent criminals just to follow it up with, but if you're here illegally, then yeah, we're gonna come after you too. I feel like you're trying to have it both ways there, right?
Oh man. One dude, yeah, this guy is I wonder what's actually going to happen, if he's going to be able to like deport all of these people or not. And then, oh, here's another one.
Run it again. And we know what happens to these children, Sean. And look, the illegal aliens coming across the border, people need to understand, 31% of women that make that journey get raped by criminal cartels. Jesus. Children get raped. I've talked to little girls as young as 9 that have been multiple times. These cartels are animals, and that's why President Trump's going.
But if you turn around and ask people like him, like, oh, okay, so should we give these people asylum then? If they're trying to escape sexual violence, should we give them asylum? They would immediately be like, oh, heavens, no. No, I didn't say that. So they do this thing where they talk about sexual violence while people are in transport to the border, and it's a purely political posture. That's a purely like cynical play. So, I mean, I had this very experience. It was a debate, I want to say like 2 or 3 months ago, and this exact situation came up. So there was this young woman that was on the panel that I was a part of. I think it was it a WIC panel, I believe? And she brought up the sexual violence that women experience when they're, you know, being transported by coyotes and all that stuff. And then I said, okay, well, would you want to give these women asylum then? And this person was like, nah, well, I didn't say that.
Going to take them off the face of the earth. They've killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world, and President Trump is committed to calling them terrorist organization and using the full might of the United States Special Operations to take them out.
Nobody, I mean, does anybody in chat oppose deporting violent criminals, violent gang members? Like, I don't know if you would find too many crocodile tears from a super left-leaning audience. Like, I don't know if any of you guys would oppose that, right? Like, the problem that we have is not getting rid of violent criminals. Like, yeah, obviously deport these people, it's fine. But when we're talking about like your abuela that's been here for 20 years, has never committed any kind of crime. Like, I don't think we should be spending federal resources, money, time, devoting manpower to deporting your abuela. That's where we disagree.
Run it again. And
That is crazy. He's invading Mexico. I don't know what he's gonna do. Yeah, I have no idea. Holy shit. Yeah, if he's gonna use the military, like the U.S. military, to get rid of the cartels, like, that would be insane.
Let me ask you this.
Again, what are we talking about? Are we talking about drones striking Mexico? Are we talking about, like, does anybody think this is actually going to happen? Are we talking about, yeah, like a land invasion along the southern border? Like sending in American, like, federal officers into Mexican territory? Like the movie Sicario on crack?
Do you like the idea of maybe giving a grace period where people that did not respect our laws, borders, sovereignty, that maybe you give them 2 or 3 months and you say you can self-report and we will help deport you. We will send you back to your home country. And if you do that...
Is this a real thing? Do people self-deport? Like, criminals and gang members get no grace period while we're out prioritizing the public safety threats and national security threats. If you want to self-deport, you should self-deport because, again, we know who you are and we're going to come and find you. Like, how many people actually self-deport a year? One of Trump's campaign promises was to mount the largest domestic deportation in U.S. history. He made similar promises when he ran for the presidency in 2016, but during his administration, deportations never topped 350,000. For comparison, then President Barack Obama carried out 432,000 deportations in 2013, the highest annual total since records began. And I feel like we need to get, like, I feel like this needs to be explained every single time, but I'll just do it again very briefly. We changed the way that we classify deportations on Obama's watch to include, when it otherwise was not included previously, to include turning people away at the border. And once we did that, he had more deportations than George W. Bush and Bill Clinton. But if you use the same standard that Clinton and Bush used when they were doing deportations, Obama actually deported less people that were actually in the United States. So that's the caveat that I always want to add, because this whole, like, deporter in chief thing, nobody challenges it. Like, people talk about Obama being the deporter in chief, and it's just this commonly accepted thing that people just accept uncritically, and it's not true. It's just simply not true.
That will put money in your pocket so you can rebuild your life, which would be a lot cheaper than paying for 3 nights at a 4-star hotel in New York and giving them a debit card. And in a year, after a year or 2 years or 3 years, whatever it is, you can then apply to come into the country legally. If you don't deport, then you will never be given an opportunity at citizenship. And when you leave, you will never be invited back. You will never be able to apply to come into the country. Sound like a good idea or no?
criminals and gang members get no grace period. But while we're
What is he laughing at? I don't understand. What is funny about this? I don't understand. What is he laughing at? This is just like standard. I mean, I feel like this is just really standard kind of tough on crime talk, right?
Bro, he's actually him. Oh my God. Oh,
out prioritizing the public safety threats and national security threats. If you want to self-deport, you should self-deport because, again, we know who you are and we're going to come and find you. So if you want to self-deport, that's fine. But criminals and gang members, they get no favors from this administration. You came to this country legally, which is a crime. You committed crimes against United States citizens.
Someone in Asmon's chat said wipe them out? Jesus Christ.
Homes or whatever, they can put all that in order and leave with their family altogether. It makes perfect sense for the ones that are not criminals and not priorities.
How can you avoid getting separated? You can get deported together. Oh, God.
How are they going to get home? How do they get home?
Yeah.
There's something like sociopathic about this. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the ones we're going to arrest them won't put on an airplane and send them home. And the ones that want to go home on their own, they found their way across the world to come to the greatest nation on earth. They can find their way home. Either that,
Jesus Christ.
or I'll give them a free airline ticket that we put them on our airplane and we'll take them home. It's either way. It's up to them. If we arrest them, they come on our airplane, Sean. If they want to go on their own airplane, I welcome it.
Oh my God.
And then his chat, basically take a hike, scrubs. Hell yeah, let's go. Yes, sir.
Got a point. Yes.
I love this guy. America is the best. Finally, a straight shooter. Free plane ride. Sounds fun. Jesus.
Yeah, Border Czar is enjoying this so much. That's the thing, is you can tell that he's having a lot of fun with this. Yeah, put him in the spirit. Let me see if I can find the other one. I think this one's.
You know, we were talking to the Live and Learn boys last night, and they expressed skepticism that Trump is going to earnestly pursue this policy of mass deportation. I'm not so convinced. I am not convinced that they're not going to follow through on this. I don't think Trump has given me any reason to suspect that he's not going to try and actually follow through on this policy. It was a huge campaign policy. It was one of the central pillars of his campaign was mass deportations. There were signs that they passed out at the RNC, and the signs read mass deportation now. Trump's chief policy advisor, Stephen Miller, is on social media saying, we are going to start doing this day one. Day one. We are going to deputize like Texas National Guard service members, and they're going to go into blue states and blue cities, and they're going to round up hundreds and thousands of people. And we're going to start doing this policy on day one. I believe they're going to try to actually do that. I don't believe that was just blowing in the wind or whatever.
Up, isn't it? Yeah, this one's kind of up.
Mr. Homan.
You work for me. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their.
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm gonna be separated. When I was a police,
We don't kidnap people's kids though. If you get a DUI, the government doesn't come and kidnap your child and then not tell you where your child is. They're put into the system, and then you can like access them once you're done paying your debt to society or whatever. We don't like take people's kids and then literally just be like, too bad, don't know where your kid is. You should have thought about that before getting behind a wheel when you were drinking.
Police officer in New York, and I arrested a father for domestic violence. I separated that father
Mr.
from his
Homan,
family.
with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
To come.
You're into the country illegally is violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum, you go through the port of entry, do it the legal way.
Oh man. I don't know if that's true. Do asylum seekers have to show up at a port of entry? You know what, guys? Like the new AI feature in Google in Chrome is actually not terrible. Asylum seekers must physically present in the United States or at a port of entry to apply for asylum. People who have fled their homes in search of safety or protection can seek asylum once they're physically present in the U.S. or they're at a port of entry. My understanding is that if you apply for asylum, you actually don't have to show up at a legal port of entry, was my understanding. You just have to be physically present in the United States.
Man.
Probably not the right thing to say, but I was angry. Let me tell you why you're angry, because you or no one else in this room has seen what I've seen in my 34 years. You didn't stand in the back of the tractor trailer showing my 19 dead aliens that suffocated to death because the smuggler didn't care, including a 5-year-old boy. What do you think his last 30 minutes were like? I was there. I seen it, I smelled it, I saw it, and I had a 5-year-old boy at the time, and it changed me for the rest of my life. I've seen people who couldn't pay their smuggling fees get stabbed in the face 22 times. 31% of women are being crossing this border. Children are dying. Cartels are getting rich. Why am I angry? Because you haven't done anything to fix it. Nothing.
Man.
Again, I don't think you can find very many people on the left that don't want like violent criminals and human traffickers to be pursued, charged with crimes, held accountable, this kind of thing. The issue that I have with people like this guy is he seems to conflate, like, everybody who comes across the border, he just puts in this large bucket of violent criminals. And that's just how the Trump administration operated during their first term, and there's every indication this time around that they're going to do the same thing again. And it's not just that, there's like a public relations campaign. There's like a propaganda campaign that they embark on. They deliberately try, and they're successful they're largely successful in doing this. They go out there and they try to convince the public that the vast majority of people that are coming, if not everybody, that are coming over our southern border are these violent criminals. It's been super, 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 super effective. They're really good at convincing people that, like, your average border crosser or your average asylum applicant are these violent criminals. Aren't you required to seek asylum in the country closest to you? I believe that was a part of the Remain in Mexico policy, but I don't know if that's in effect right now. I don't know if you have to claim asylum. I think the Biden administration might have worked out a deal with some countries. That's a good question. I don't know if they still do that.
Man. And you can tell that he's enjoying it. You know, like, I feel like he's enjoying it now that he finally, like, they're going to appoint him.
Who is that toddler hammering? I thought it was a World of Warcraft music. He can finally do something. He is the person we need, based.
And there's basically going to be like, no, I can't see how they're going to stop this guy. This guy definitely hates his country. True.
Mr. Homan, do you understand that the consequences of separation of many children will be lifelong trauma and carried across generations? Have we not learned from the internment of Japanese Americans?
Again, we're talking about the family separation policy is one of the most heinous policies that we've ever done as a country. I mean that. Like, what are you know? Like, you can make an argument that the family separation thing was worse than internment. To kidnap someone's kid, to kidnap someone's kid, and then put him into the system, and then, like, don't create, like, an adequate paper trail that can easily reconnect the family with their kid, like literally kidnapping kids. How is that not worse than internment?
Mr. Homan, I'm a father. Do you have children? How can you possibly allow this to happen under your watch? Do you not care? Is it because these children don't look like children that are around you? I don't.
Speak.
What is he laughing about? What is it? I don't understand this.
There we go. Yep.
Well, I mean, were we separating, like, you know, Polish families who overstayed their visa? Were we separating, you know, like, immigrants from, like, Hungary that didn't do all their proper paperwork? Were we taking their kids away?
Is it because you're a racist?
Get it. Mm-hmm. Have you ever held a deceased child in your arms?
First of all, your comments are disgusting. I've served my country.
I've served my country
for 34 years.
I find your comments
this is out of
disgusting
control.
as well.
I've served my country for 34 years. And yes, I held a 5-year-old boy in my arms in back of that tractor trailer. I knelt down beside him and said a prayer for him because I knew what his last 30 minutes of his life were like. And I had a 5-year-old son at the time. What I've been trying to do my 34 years serving my nation is to save lives. So for you to sit there and insult my integrity and my love
We're talking about kidnapping kids, for fucking Christ's sakes.
For my country and for children,
Man.
That's why this whole thing needs to be fixed. And you're the member.
We
of
agree
Congress.
on that.
Fix it.
And you fix it by kidnapping kids? That's what we do? Listen, there's a reason why that policy got stopped within like 2 or 3 weeks. There was so much backlash that they ended the family separation policy relatively quickly. My memory is not the best from the Trump years. I was drinking a lot, to be honest with you. But I think it was within 1 or 2 months that the policy ended. He wrote an executive order, ended the policy. And still, just in that short amount of time, there were over 2,000 kids that were kidnapped, separated permanently from their family.
This room has seen what I've seen in my 34-year career.
Very well.
No one has experienced what I've experienced. I've saw many dead bodies coming across this border. And you want to talk about the memo? This memo is one option to stop death. not just about enforcing the law, stop death. If you want to legalize illegal immigration, good luck with that, because it's going to get a hell of a lot worse on that border. If you say, well, okay, from now on, there will be no consequence, no deterrence. It's not illegal to come to this country illegally. More families would come. 31% women would be.
I don't know if anybody, any Democrat serving on that subcommittee was saying that we should just not have any enforcement mechanism for our border whatsoever. They were pissed about kidnapping kids.
More children would die. We're a nation of laws. If you don't like it, sir, change it. You're the legislator. I'm the executive branch. And I've served my country honorably for 34 years. And I
think that what happened is that I don't understand why it's become like a legitimate position to think that illegal immigration is a good thing. But I think it's like one of those other examples of basically these.
Who is saying this? Who is saying this? Who is like, he's saying like it's like a mainstream Democratic position to literally do open borders. And there's probably like 2 people in the entire Congress that flirted with that like a little bit. Like I think Julian Castro in 2020 was talking about how we should just fully decriminalize like border crossings, but he was a fringe candidate. He did not last long in the primaries. Who are these mainstream Democrats that are saying we should have no border and no enforcement mechanisms?
These opinions that I think that very, very few people actually think that you should.
Open borders was your position, right, Hutch? No. Like, when have I ever said that?
To get rid of borders or get rid of, like any sort of immigration standards. But what's happened is
he's speaking to like 0.2% of the country, and they're all undergrads. Okay. Like the only people who think that we should have like zero borders whatsoever are fucking goddamn Marxists. Like actual Marxists.
That I think that there's a lot of like emotional arguments and emotional thinking. Like, for example, like if you look at like the way that this guy was talking, I think that basically everything that he was saying is built off of emotion, implication, and insinuation, right?
They were kidnapping kids. That's why people are getting emotional. It wasn't them saying like, oh, we shouldn't enforce the border. This was a hearing about the family separation policy. They were upset because the United States government systematically was kidnapping kids. That's what they were upset about.
And so I think people are kind of tired of being talked down to and being like emotionally blackmailed into having opinions that they know are wrong. And I think that's what's happened a lot is that I think that people have had.
I think what's happening here is that Asmon is just super ignorant as to the specific context of this subcommittee hearing. I don't know if Asmon is aware that there was a family separation policy. If you asked him like, hey, what happened with the family separation policy? I don't think he would have a good answer. I think he has no idea. And I think he's just interpreting this specific subcommittee hearing as like, I guess every Democrat that's serving on that subcommittee in his mind are up there saying like, we shouldn't have any borders when none of this is true.
Their viewpoints framed in a way that makes them look like villains. And at a certain point,
it is villainous to kidnap children. Yes.
If you do that to people long enough, people will just accept being a villain. It's an appeal to emotion. Yeah, that's basically what's happened. And I think that's why you're seeing such a huge pushback.
No, he has no idea what is going on in this hearing. He has no clue.
On it right now. Yeah, it's having empathy. Well, I think that the problem is that the empathy is one-sided. And this is the big issue, is that a lot of the people that ask for empathy, or they're like, oh, well, we want you to have empathy towards this. They don't have any empathy towards you. They're trying to weaponize.
What are we talking about?
Your empathy against you to make you do things that they want you to do. It has nothing to do with empathy.
I'm the executive branch, and I've served my country honorably for 34 years. And I will not sit here and have anybody say that I don't care about children because you're not the same color as my children. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Take a shot every time this guy says, I've served my country honorably for the last 34 years.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like it's so tiresome to hear stuff like that be said. So
Asmon, they're pissed. I've said it 1,000 times. They're pissed that they were kidnapping kids, Asmon.
tiresome. Weaponized empathy, absolute garbage. Yeah, I think so. People love being lied to. No one likes reality. People that are more rational are in the minority. I think that you're definitely right that it's two brands of like emotional behavior, but I think that after a while, people get tired of one of them. So the facts over feelings party got butthurt over being called mean words. Well, yeah, nobody wants to be called mean words and be categorized as something that they're not and be told that they're a bad.
The problem isn't that we were like tearing kids away from their parents and then putting them in the foster system and then sending the parents back to like Guatemala. That's not the problem. The problem is that they called this guy Tom Homan or whatever his name is. The problem is they called him a racist. That's the real problem.
Bad person. Why would somebody want to be called that? Of course that would make people mad. Yeah, I mean, duh. Obviously.
Back to April 23rd of 2018, where there was an official recommendation to, quote, pursue prosecution of all amenable adults who cross our border, quote, illegally, even though this applied to legal asylum seekers in practice, including those presenting with a family unit between ports of entry in coordination with DOJ. Here is the memo that I would like to submit to the congressional record.
What is the date on that?
It is the memorandum for the Secretary from Homeland Security.
Date.
April 23rd, 2018, subject increasing prosecutions of immigration
I didn't
violations.
see this part.
Without objection.
And so I looked at this memo and it seems like this is the source of it. And it seems as though, Mr. Homan, that you are the author. It says here from yourself, Kevin Michalinen.
Asmon also has a Ghost shirt on, and Ghost is a metal band for people who are afraid of metal. Ghost fans are lame. I can't speak to that. I hate metal. I hate metal music more than I hate like poppy country music. I hate like metal music more than I hate Tim McGraw. I'm not even kidding. It like hurts my brain when I listen to the music. It's so invasive. That's the word. I feel so invaded by that music when I listen to it. No disrespect to the metal fans in the chat, but I find it excruciating and torturous.
And Francis Cisna. Is this correct? Did you sign the memo?
I'd have to see what you...
Give it
I'd be happy to provide it. And we'll provide it over, but I would like to note that here it says the official recommendation. There were 3 different options presented. The third included the option for family separation. This initiative would pursue prosecution of all amenable adults, including those presenting with a family unit.
What's your favorite Radiohead album? Why is it OK Computer when it should be In Rainbows? My opinion is that there are 3, I think, acceptable answers for what the best Radiohead album is. You can either say it's OK Computer, you can either say it's Kid A, or you can say it's In Rainbows. Those are the only 3 acceptable answers. Not the Bends, okay? It's definitely not Pablo Honey. It's not Hail to the Thief, although all 3 of those albums are good. All 3 of those albums are good. You know, Amnesiac is a really good album. King of Limbs is okay, you know. But I don't know if I can pick a favorite between those 3. If you put a gun to my head and force me to choose, it'd probably be OK Computer. Can't wait to see you lying and clutching your pearls on PKA when they decide to invite you next. Okay. If they invite me, I'm down. Let's go. I hear Woody needs some support. The streets are saying Woody needs some serious support right now. That's what chat says. He's not doing well.
Mr. Homan, your name is on this. Is this correct?
My favorite thing is like people coming in the chat and they come in and they're typing stuff like, oh, these liberal tears, they're so nice. It's like nectar from the gods. It tastes so good. I just want to rub your liberal tears all over my body so I can absorb them. And meanwhile, I'm over here like telling people like, yeah, you won. That's it. Accept it. Move on. Let's go. On to the next race. Let's talk about 2026. Like, I'm not doing anything that they like want me to do, but I think they're assuming that I'm going to do that.
Yes, I signed that memo.
So you are the author of the family separation policy.
I am not the author of this memo.
You're not the author, but you signed the memo.
Yes, a zero tolerance memo.
So you provided the official recommendation to Secretary Nielsen on family for the United States to pursue family separation.
I gave Secretary Nielsen numerous recommendations on how to secure the border and save lives.
But it says here that you gave her numerous options, but the recommendation.
What's she trying to say? This is what's been like very.
He's not going to be able to. Asman has no idea what's going on in this hearing. None. How is he qualified to answer this question?
On how to secure the border and save lives.
But it says here that you gave her numerous options, but the recommendation.
What's she trying to say?
What she's trying to identify is whether or not this guy, who is going to be Trump's border czar when he's inaugurated this year, what she's trying to establish is whether or not he was the one who conceived of the family separation policy.
This is what's been like very prevalent, and I think that like it's kind of what I was saying earlier, is that I think that there is a very big culture of the emotional blackmail.
He has no idea what's going on in this. He has no context, none whatsoever. How is he qualified to answer the question? What's she trying to do here? He has no idea what this hearing is even about.
And the insinuations that I think people are kind of tired of because they're very one-sided. So what she's doing.
I have for years listened to conservative rhetoric escalate and escalate and escalate year over year, over and over and over again, to the extent where it's now completely acceptable to accuse random median Democrats of wanting to abuse and mutilate kids. It's just normal. It's just normal to, and it's completely unconditionally accepted in right-wing circles that this is a normal Democratic voter position, that we want to abuse, groom, and mutilate kids. And he wants to lecture us about quote-unquote emotional blackmail from AOC during this subcommittee hearing when he himself has no idea what this hearing is even about. He doesn't know any of the specifics behind this hearing.
Doing is that she's framing what he's doing as like, oh, it's tearing apart families or something like that, when the logic is actually very simple. If you commit a crime and a person goes to jail, it tears them apart from their family. If you want to
we don't do that. Our criminal justice system, we do not, like, if you get arrested for trespassing or whatever, we don't kidnap your kids. We may send in like social services to make sure that the kids' immediate needs are met. But when that person exits jail, as long as they weren't like abusing the kid, they will be reunited with their kid. The issue with this policy was that there was no effort to reconnect families after they were separated. The point was to permanently separate families from their babies as a deterrent. What they were hoping with like DHS and all that stuff, as a matter of policy, what they were hoping was the word would spread in places like Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Mexico. What they were hoping was that the word would spread. Oh, if you try to take your kid across the border, they're going to kidnap your kid. So we definitely shouldn't try to make that trek anymore. It wasn't that they were explicit in their intentions. And you can watch here. There's a John Kelly, who I think was the initial head of DHS before he became Donald Trump's chief of staff, came out and said, yeah, we're doing this as a deterrent.
Are you, the Department of Homeland Security, considering a new initiative that would separate children from their parents if they try to enter the United States illegally?
Let me start by saying I would do almost anything to deter the people from Central America.
When we say separate, we mean permanently separate. The intention was to permanently separate them.
To getting on this very, very dangerous network that brings them up through Mexico into the United States.
Let me just be precise.
Right.
If you get some young kids who are coming in, managed to sneak into the United States with their parents, our Department of Homeland Security personnel going to separate the children from their moms and dads.
We have tremendous experience in dealing with unaccompanied minors. We turn them over to HHS, and they do a very, very good job of either putting them in kind of foster care or linking them up.
He's trying to soften this policy, like, well, you know, actually, we're pretty good about taking care of kids. That's not the issue. The issue is we kidnap them.
With parents or family members in the United States. Yes, I am considering, in order to deter more movement along this terribly dangerous network, I am considering exactly that. They will be well cared for as we deal with their parents.
After we've taken them from you. This is what he's talking about. That's what he's talking about. And he says it right there. I am considering as a means to deter people from taking this dangerous trek. Kidnapping kids. That's what we're talking about. It's not hyperbole to say we kidnapped kids.
Avoid that. Don't commit crime. It's very simple. Family separation is kind of though. Well, like, here's the problem is that how do you solve that? How do you solve that without just simply not enforcing the laws?
If you're going to turn away a family at the border, how do you solve that is you let them keep their children, which is what we did for decades. The only time we didn't do that was when they briefly had this policy of kidnapping kids. In every other point in United States history, we wouldn't like take their kid. We would just turn them away and send them back like with their kid.
That's the issue. If you're committing crimes, like everybody knows coming over to the United States randomly is against the law. They know that they're doing it. And
that's not even true. That's not even true. Because you have these coyotes in all these countries that are intentionally misleading people to fleece them out of $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000. And they say, yeah, all you got to do is you got to show up and you got to apply for asylum. And this is what you say and blah, 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 blah. It's actually not true that everybody coming across our border is aware that they're violating the law. My understanding too is that for the first time offense, when you cross the border, it's a civil violation. It's not a criminal violation. For the second time, it turns into a misdemeanor, I believe, unlawful entry. I'm pretty sure the first time it's considered a civil offense.
They do it. So, like, how is this our fault? How is this our problem?
What if you get arrested and sentenced to a year in jail? Do they take your kids? If the kid has no family to be set up with while you're incarcerated, then the kid will be put in the system. But when you get out of jail, you get to go back and be reunited with your kids. Do you understand the difference here? Like, imagine, okay, I'm trying to explain this in a way that you guys can understand. Some of you doubters in the chat. Let's imagine you get arrested for check forgery, right? And you go to jail for 6 months. Imagine if the United States government put your kid into the foster care system, and then when you got out of jail, they didn't tell you where your kid was set up. They said, well, you should have thought of that before you forged the checks. Now your kid's off in the system and we're not going to tell you where they're at. Would you think that that is like an acceptable form of punishment? Let's say you were trying to deter check forgery. Would that be acceptable to you? Do you think that that would be an appropriate punishment to permanently separate you from your kids? You understand, like, this is the difference. This is the big difference here. The state will come in and take your kid away if you're found to have abused your child. But the threshold for that is actually quite high. I don't know how it is in other states, but in California, it's actually, you have to cross like a really serious threshold before the state comes in and takes your kid from you and puts them in foster care. You have to have been found to have abused them, like seriously abused them. And in that situation, they will take your kid away. But if you just have a kid or whatever, and you cheat on your taxes, let's say you do so a little bit of, you dabble in a little bit of like tax evasion, and you get audited by the IRS, and they find out that you've been hiding income, and for mitigating circumstances, whatever, you end up in penitentiary for 9 months, okay, and then you come out. The system in that spot will reunite you with your kid. They're not going to like permanently take your kid away. No, nobody thinks that, but they won't accept it because they're too stubborn. You either have liberals or Trump trolls in these chat. Hutch, nobody. If there's a centrist here, I'll eat my hat. I don't even know what does it mean to be a centrist with respect to like kidnapping kids? What's the center position on that? I don't know what the middle position is. It's like, I just think it's just never okay to permanently kidnap kids. I feel like most people share that position. In fact, I know most people share that position because Donald Trump ended this policy like that. There was so much political pressure put on him that he wrote an executive order and ended the policy. The backlash was swift and it was intense. What with the whole like kidnapping kids thing?
To correct. It's not even a question.
Option 3, family separation.
What I'm saying, this is not the only paper where we've given the secretary numerous options to secure the border and save lives.
And so the recommendation of the many that you recommended family separation.
I recommend a zero tolerance.
Which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Yes. And I think the reason why a lot of people like this guy is he's giving like no bull.
It's not the same though. I feel like Asman is not stupid. I feel like he's not stupid. I know some people in chat are going to disagree. I feel like Asman is not like stupid. You know what I mean? There's some stupid people out there. Like Banks is stupid. Some of these other like TikTok influencers or whatever. Jack Doherty, stupid, right? Asman is not stupid. So how is he just missing the enormous difference between temporarily separating their kids from their parents while their parents are incarcerated and kidnapping your kids? There's a wide delta between these two things. They're not the same thing at all.
Bullshit answers to questions that are very emotionally charged and emotionally loaded.
No, this is a bullshit answer. This is a bullshit answer.
And I think people are tired of having empathy weaponized against them to make them act against their own best interests. That's really what the issue is. And I think that like there's a certain degree of, as I was saying, like emotional blackmail that's used in order to make people like afraid of saying what clearly should happen, because what should happen sometimes isn't a pretty thing. But the problem is that in a lot of cases, 2019, yeah, but what I'm saying is that this 2019, this event led to people being fed up with it. That's the issue.
He is so astonishingly ignorant about this topic. It's the opposite. The opposite happened. There was intense backlash from the public regarding this policy, and they ended the policy. He's trying to rewrite history that this event radicalized people in favor of kidnapping kids, and it's the opposite. He is astonishingly ignorant of the facts and the context regarding this event.
To a certain degree, yeah, absolutely. She's trying to frame it in a way that seems like he gave an order. He gave a recommendation, not an order. Yeah. It's also very straightforward answers. Yeah, and I think that's another thing that people are tired of, is that the way that people tried to dishonestly frame questions and frame comments in a way that's inaccurate. I think that the average...
What? Such as? What do you mean? And what is this whole like, oh, it was just a recommendation and not an order? They crafted policy. They crafted official executive branch policy because of this recommendation. She's making the case that he's ultimately responsible for this policy because he is. If he never would have written that recommendation, they never would have adopted that policy.
Person probably can't notice that, but there's a lot of people that do. And this is also, by the way, this isn't, I don't want anybody to think this is like a partisan thing. I think this happens with everybody, is that if you're
well, that's charitable.
Framing what somebody's saying in a way that is inaccurate or unfair or misleading, I think that you are... There's another component to this too, is that when you do that to somebody, you also insult the intelligence of everybody who's watching you do it. Because what you're basically saying is that you're so stupid that I can lie right in front of you and misrepresent this, and you're going to still go along with it.
It's just frustrating because if memory serves me correct, didn't Asman recently take like a little bit of a break because of the Twitch ban? And didn't Asman commit to I don't want to rewrite history here or ascribe things to him that he never said. But didn't he say he was going to be more careful about the stuff that he says? Didn't he say that he was going to try to educate himself more? Am I making that up? I feel like it was more than just like, oh, I need to reflect on what I said. But it was like, I feel like he committed to saying he's going to like be more educated on stuff. And it's just so frustrating that a dude with 3.09 million subscribers just willy-nilly brings up a video of a subcommittee hearing from back in 2019 that he clearly knows nothing about. He has no idea about the family separation policy, which kind of blows my mind because that was like the family separation policy was like one of the biggest stains of the Trump presidency. I feel like most people know about that policy because it was so outrageous, which is why they ended it like a month later. And this dude he queues up this video and he just like off the cuff starts giving you his in-depth analysis. And it's like, you couldn't have just Googled what was the family separation policy before you decided to put a video up about it, and this video has now, I think, over 1 million views, 1.7 million views. And now you got all these like idiot followers over here on the right. They're like, yeah, this guy's based. I just feel like you have an obligation to like, if you're gonna cover serious topics, you should probably do like a really cursory amount of research into these topics. Trump just named John Sauer, who helped Trump win near total presidential immunity from the Supreme Court, as his pick for Solicitor General. Nice.
It's a form of strawmanning. So what you're saying is, yeah, exactly.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested,
The zero tolerance policy was like multifaceted. At the crux of the zero tolerance policy was that they were going to criminally prosecute everyone who entered our country, like border crossed or whatever. And it used to be that we wouldn't, like, again, I think the first time offense was considered a civil offense, a civil violation. And if people were applying for asylum, we wouldn't like criminally charge them for anything. And the zero tolerance policy was that they were going to charge literally everyone, which we just, like, our system, like, we do not have the resources in place to do anything like that. And a part of that policy was the family separation, which is like, okay, if you show up at our border illegally and you brought a kid, we're going to take your kid, throw him into the foster care system, and then we're going to criminally prosecute you, and then we're going to deport you. And then you just don't have your kid anymore. That was the policy.
for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York.
Somebody says what crime they committed, seeking asylum is legal. Oh, they cover that.
And I arrested a father.
Really? That's all you have to say about that? They cover that? It's not illegal to apply for asylum. It was not our policy to like criminally prosecute people if they showed up at our border and applied for asylum. The Donald Trump administration decided to go a different route with them.
For domestic violence, I separated that.
Mr. Homan, with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
This is for you.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum and go through the port of entry, do it the legal way.
You don't need to do that, though. People who have fled their homes in search of safety or protection can seek asylum once they are physically present in the U.S. or at a port of entry, such as an airport or official land crossing. Asylum seekers must demonstrate to authorities that they are unable or unwilling to return to their country of origin because of persecution or a well-founded fear of persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. Currently, some people who have arrived at the U.S. border have sought asylum protection are facing extended waiting periods, up to 7 years in some cases, for their application to be adjudicated. This is difficult to see. Individual appears at a port of entry. Individual is apprehended between ports of entry. CBP officer refers individual to the U.S. Attorney's Office for criminal charges for attempted illegal entry. CBP officer can place the individual in expedited removal, and they can be deported without seeing an immigration judge. Asylum seeker is placed in detention until they receive credible fear interview to determine if they have an arguable case for asylum. Okay, so this is a little complicated. Does the individual, when interviewed by CBP, express a fear of return to their home country? No, they're removed. Yes. The individual goes before a magistrate judge and is convicted of illegal entry. No prison sentence or sentence to time in prison. Individual is in prison for immigration-related offenses. Wait, hold on a second. Hold on. So you can end up here. Asylum seeker is placed in detention until they receive a credible fear interview to determine if they have an arguable case for asylum. If they do have a credible fear, the asylum seeker is either kept in detention or paroled until their hearing before an immigration judge who makes that determination on the asylum claim. So they do go through the process. They do go through a criminal process. But at the end of that process, if all their ducks are lined up and they fit the criteria for asylum, you can go through all that process and still be granted asylum. So it's a little bit murky. You can end up at this part of the process right here, actually straight from here. So either which way, if they show up illegally between ports of entry, they're processed through the system and they could be subject to an expedited removal, or they can face criminal charges. But in either of these two cases, you can end up here, which is during the CBP interview, does that person express a fear of return to their home country? If the answer is yes, then you can end up like, yeah. So it's a little bit complicated. But AOC is right in that someone can show up in between ports of entry and still be granted asylum. It's not the ideal way of doing it, but it happens.
The Attorney
And our laws allow for that to happen.
General of the United States has made
If you want to change that, you would have to change our asylum laws.
that clear.
Okay.
Mr. Homan,
There it is.
Look,
please respect the chair and the authority of the chair. The time of the gentleman has expired.
I've asked you politely to let me go beyond my time, and you let other people go beyond their time, but not to Tom Homan. He don't get to go beyond his time.
Mr. Homan.
He refers to himself in the third person. That's an immediate red flag. If anybody refers to themselves in the third person, that is an immediate red flag.
We have approved
this is
an
circus.
agreement
This is circus.
between the Republicans and the Democrats with the ranking member.
It sucks that there's like a whole generation of men, of young men in this country, who confuse belligerence, just like belligerent aggression, with strength. So even though this guy in this moment is behaving like a child, you know, like a child throwing a tantrum, there's supposed to be decorum in a situation like this. A lot of young men have been conditioned to believe now in this country, when they see that as like, oh, he's a straight shooter. He tells it like it is. And in reality, this is a guy who cannot control his emotions. There's a line from Morgan Freeman's character. He says to Brad Pitt's character, he says sarcastically, what does he say? Hold on. He says this.
It's impressive to see a man feeding off his emotions.
He says sarcastically after Brad Pitt loses his shit and assaults a press member who we later find out was the serial killer. And then Brad Pitt apologizes. And then Morgan Freeman says sarcastically, it's impressive to watch a man feed off of his emotions. And that's what this guy's doing. He just can't keep his shit together. And people like Asman, apparently, they just like nod and like, yeah, you love to see that.
We increased the time of one witness, one member of Congress who was interrupted by a protest. That is done with the approval of the ranking member. Please respect the chair's authority. The
I respect the chair's authority, but the chair...
Mr. Homan!
You work for me. I'm a...
Interrupting a subcommittee chair like that? Saying, I pay my taxes, you work for me.
Taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. You work for me.
Jeez. And then he's just like, yeah, that's amazing.
Man.
No bullshit, straight shooter. You love to see that.
And so you can slap him, she get mad. Yeah, they're getting real mad about this. So, yeah, that's basically what's going on. And, yeah.
And through this process of a really mainstream YouTuber making a 20-minute video about a subject he clearly knows nothing about, like when we're talking about the specifics, he sane washes, and I don't even know if sane wash is the word for it. He completely sanitizes the issue. He completely divorces like what the actual issue that people had at the time was, just sets that aside completely, constructs this completely alternative reality where all of a sudden it's not about this guy defending kidnappings. It's like this guy simply wants to enforce the border and they're emotionally manipulating him. And people are tired of that. People are tired of being emotionally, having their empathy weaponized. And we're just so far removed from the actual issue, which spurned this subcommittee hearing to begin with. Carl of Carl says, but Hutch, it seems you don't know anything about it either. Brother, hold on. Do you disagree that this subcommittee hearing was about family separation and that Asmongold seems to have completely missed the point? He has no idea what was being discussed. Do you even disagree with that? Carl of Carls? It's not Twitch chat. Twitch chat, you guys are good. If we got a little problem, we got a problem child here in the YouTube chat. Carl, do you disagree that Asmon had no idea what the family separation policy was? I think Asmon's line about being emotionally manipulated really means he's tired of being forced to show empathy for people that aren't him. I'm not going to jump to that conclusion. I think he's deep in the culture war stuff, and so he's just taking a contrarian position because his intuition tells him like, oh, they're trying to manipulate me, because he sees everything through this like woke agenda. Carl of Carl says he missed the point. He was wrong. Okay, and then what did I get wrong? Because you said that I didn't know what I was talking about. What did I get wrong about this whole thing? I remember this very vividly. I'm like a Trump scholar, bro. You have no idea how engaged with politics I was every day of the Trump administration. Like, I would wake up every day and read the news for like 2-3 hours every day. Like, I'm a bit of a Trump expert. Okay. It's just frustrating. This dude has such a massive platform. And then do we even want to look at the comments? I'm scared. I'm scared, boss. I love that answer is they found their way here. They can find their way back. He's going to treat criminals like they're criminals. Oh no. The U.S. has a right to protect its border. He's absolutely correct. Family separation is kind of, you know what else is stabbing people in the face 22 times. Yeah, family, you know what? Family separation is, you know what else is? How about cannibalism? Okay. What about eating people? Checkmate, lib. Like, I don't know if anybody in these comments are aware of like what the family separation policy is. And I would be willing to bet that if you actually explained people what the truth was about that policy, I'll bet you 90% of even Asmon's audience would be like, that's kind of, that's a little too far. That's probably a little too far. I'll bet you anything. That's kind of the reason why Trump ended it like so quickly. There was such a backlash about that policy. I think Hutch didn't see the reply. Okay. I also think that you were wrong about seeking asylum, that you can just claim asylum and it isn't illegal. Claiming asylum is not illegal. I'm saying that there was a mechanism allowed for in our asylum laws where you could show up in between a port of entry and still at the end of that process, you can be determined to have a valid asylum claim. That's what I was saying. Chat has spoken and we're banning sane washing in favor of normalizing. I feel like normalizing was the big word during Trump's first term. That was like the big thing.